to get to that subset of your crowd that has those devices, right? So this is where you carry out testing from a different number of testers in different places, not by hired consultants or professionals. This is just sourcing the crowd, right? And so it's good for all those reasons that I mentioned, but where it's not as good is if you need someone that has deep domain knowledge. And this came up yesterday as well, right? Now, you may get lucky, and you might have a domain expert in your crowd, which is great, that knows your application and can actually do some good functional testing with their device, right? But if not, you probably want to go down the consultant route and hire people that have those skills if you want that as a service. So there's a lot of benefits. You get a lot of in-the-well bugs, right? Things that end up in production that usually escape your testing lab, because now you have kind of like a real-world simulation. Think of this crowd, they're all testing on these different devices with these different applications running in the background. And so when they report issues, like, it's pretty representative of if you ship to production, your population may have some of those similar issues. You test for compatibility. There's a lot of flexibility in the whole thing. You get user experience, which is good. You get a diverse population. And you get reduction in cost. Because now, if this service is the right price, you didn't have to invest in a whole lot of devices and so on and so forth, right? All right, so another way you can think of testing as a service when it comes to augmenting your mobile strategy, you have to start to think about, okay, well, I need to do this testing, I need a lab. And this is the approach that we took at first, because we didn't automatically start thinking about testing as a service. We started thinking, well, if we need to do mobile testing, we got to build a mobile lab. And this is actually the first iteration of our mobile lab, right? We got one of our employees who was very handy with woodwork to actually build this device wall. And then we bought devices, right? This was before we actually thought through all the things that we just talked about in the good strategies in the beginning, where I'm just thinking, oh, I just need devices and we're good to go. All right, so we get this wall together. Allows us to do our exploratory testing. We can test with different platforms. Then we started thinking, well, okay, well, we need to do automation. So we started to look at frameworks like Appium that were open source and free, and we started to build that. As we're building that, I started to also bring in some of the first pain points, which was that frameworks like Appium weren't as stable as things like Selenium for the web, right? So the Appium scripts would get out of date, and we started to feel a lot of pain, right? Where there was some benefits, we started to see a lot of pain. Obviously, this device lab is just in the corner of a room. We have, as I mentioned, 300 engineers, at least 100 testers. This is a very small solution for what we needed, right? Everyone can't test on this thing. So that became a problem. And so then we started to think about, well, what are some testing as a service providers that might be out there that would leverage the cloud to help deliver these services that we were needing, right? Mainly infrastructure and asset services, right? Because we were just trying to get our own engineers who had domain knowledge to have access to these devices and to be able to write automation, do continuous integration. We just needed the infrastructure and maybe the platform and access to devices, right? And so we started to go through a number of folks that were kind of in this space. And what we did was that we came up with some evaluation criteria, right? And I want to just walk through each of these, right? So that we can kind of understand. The first one is reliability, right? So we want mobile devices to be ready. You want them to be accessible and stable, right? So that was one of the main challenges. You want it to be secure, so you want to make sure that you have any application that's running on there that you don't now compromise yourself, because now you're going to a third party, so that becomes a little bit of a concern. Obviously, accessibility needs to be available to everyone, not only the people that can physically be there at the lab. So it needed to be somehow something that can go to everyone's machine, right? And they can access physical devices from there. needs to support automation, needs to be kept up to date, needs to have real devices, needs to be very usable, user-friendly. People are going to spend a lot of time on these devices and in this lab, virtual lab if you want to call it. And then we need to be able to capture data and results, right? So we came up with this long list of questions around this stuff and started to go through each of these vendors systematically. So if we are getting a service, we need to make sure that your service takes care of all of our needs. And I encourage you, whenever you set out to look and compare, one of the things that people do superficially sometimes is that they say, okay, we need to do something, let's just Google search and find what's out there. And you do that kind of quickly because Google is there and you can always search, or whatever search engine you're accustomed using. But you need to stop first and think about your criteria. Because sometimes we focus on just one or two pieces of that and we completely miss the ball and we choose a particular tool and then we find out something new. So always start with the evaluation criteria and then apply that systematically to each vendor or each possible solution that you run into. All right, so what did we do? We evaluated everyone. We still kept our mobile lab, although we upgraded it, right? So this is a new version of our lab that we have in our building facility, so that folks can still have devices that they can do more user experience testing on, right, and exploratory. Sometimes with mobile, you still need to get that feel for the application. So having a device in the cloud doesn't help you get that testing feel, right? But now we augmented that with what is mobile testing as a service in the cloud, right? So we got a provider that allows us to have these cradles, and those cradles can hold your physical devices, so you can ship your devices to them, and they slot into their cradles, and then they provide you with software as a service that allows you to access those cradles from anywhere. And when I mean anywhere, from anywhere in the world, because we have teams in Toronto, we have a team in Singapore, we have teams in the US, we have teams in Atlanta. So my little solution that I had didn't work for many people, right? But a solution like this could, right? And so we ended up going with this particular vendor, Perfecto Mobile. And the cool thing about Perfecto and about these vendors is that they give you a lot of access. You had user conditions, you had an interactive mode that you can do exploratory, you had access to automation through Selenium and Appium, and they take care of all that, so I didn't have to worry about keeping those aspects up to date. Bless you. And then they integrated with Load Runner. They also had plugins, so this is their web portal that I'm going to try to show you guys in a minute once we have some time in terms of the demo. But you can also go into Visual Studio and Eclipse and IntelliJ. They had all these plugins that you could just pull up devices right there within the development environment, right? And they had a whole bunch of other features, right? Profiles, personas that you can set up. So you can say, what if I have a person that typically lives in an area that has poor network conditions, et cetera. You can just set up that person, and then you can just test with those particular people, right? And so what happened to our Ulti-Lab? Well, we still kept the Ulti-Lab, and we still use it, as I mentioned, right? But we also then, in terms of our focus of efforts of things that we still did, we actually implemented what we call emulators as a service. And this is internally, right? So this fits really good into testing as a service. What we did is that those emulators that you can use, we wanted to make that available to everyone in our organization. And so we basically took some interns who developed a wonderful system that allowed us to spin up these emulators that anyone could request from the cloud, right? All right, so let me see if I can actually show you guys a little bit of a demonstration really quickly. If I can get into the Perfecto Cloud. so hopefully this loads. This is really a live demo. I didn't test it with this beforehand, even though I was in here sitting down waiting on people to come. But I guess I have faith that it could work, right? So here's our lab, and what we can do is launch a mobile device. And so this is some of the devices in our cloud, so I can look here, and I can say, well, let me launch this Google Nexus 6, and I can actually pull up that Nexus 6. It will take a little while to load. I've never accessed it from Malaysia, but it's good to know that my devices are 24/7 anywhere in the world. And here it loads the Nexus 6. It's just loading up. And you can load up multiple devices. And then, you can interact with this just as if this device were here with you, right? So you can do things like, obviously open up a browser window. Again, we might have some latency because of the location. Let's hope that it catches up. Meanwhile, let me open up another device just in case you have more latency than others. And the cool thing is that these are actually real devices. So you see here, some of them have contracts, some of them are Wi-Fi only, etc. So I just launched one of our products. And I'm now loading up another device. That should take some time. But what I want to show you here is hopefully we can get to the Maps application on one of these guys.
I can dream. There are lots and lots of domains out there. Banking, insurance, financial, healthcare, automotive, big subject in Germany at the moment. And other smaller specialist niches. We're looking at the moment in ISTQB at a domain-specific course for the gambling industry. Now, for us, we would say in Germany, that's not an industry. For some countries of the world, they have a big industry. In America, Canada, they like to gamble. Software programs to do with gambling need to be very, very strictly tested. They need to meet very strict standards. So they put up a niche, a small program for developing domain-specific skills for that industry. So domain technology is a big, big subject. We've been talking about Internet of Things, DevOps, all of these things, mobile, all of these technologies challenging us. We need to have a way to develop our testing skills to deal with these technologies. And I'm sorry, but just simple functional testing won't deal with these things. You need to know, for example, here, if that's representing IoT or DevOps, you need to know where testing fits in. Which one of these is your little building block, testing? How do you fit in and integrate into that kind of project? What are the main issues? You need that kind of skill for the future. And test automation is a subject that has been around for some time, but it's still there, and we still need more and more and better skills in the automation area, not just from the technical side, but from the management. How do I manage a test automation program? How do I do it? So those are some of the issues in the technology area. Sorry. And non-functional, our old friend non-functional. These are just some of them. You've seen lists of them, I guess. at this conference with all these different non-functional aspects. I've just listed here for me what I consider to be the big three. Okay, so we, in particular, usability, I see as being a big subject, which is why there's a tutorial on it tomorrow. And I see also security. It's a huge area. We need specific skills. And performance. I couldn't find really a very good image for performance, so I took the picture of a typical German businessman going to work to represent performance. Sorry, being ironic. So, test management skills then. Yes, we know about test management. I'm sure the basics we know about test management. But do we know so much about test data management? How to manage environments? How to manage test process improvement? These are special areas. We need to get into those because they will come up in our careers. They will become relevant to us one day. Maybe not tomorrow, but one day they will. How much have we been talking at this conference about test data already? I think 2 or 3 different presentations. It's a subject that, frankly, is neglected. It's not my problem. Test data, oh, that's stuff. Oh, I don't want that. You do that, you know? It's nothing to do with testing. Well, it is. And we need to know how to deal with that. So we need to have some kind of skills program. How can we actually develop our skills in test data management? So, Agile. Anybody of you doing Agile projects, working in the Agile area? Not 1 or 2. Yeah, 1 or 2 hands. Thank you. It's coming along. I mean, in Europe, it's sort of, if you're not Agile, you're not cool, you know. Which is actually rather silly, but it's kind of developing very, very strongly. So, you know, we need to have skills in Agile. What does that mean? It means that we need to know how testing fits into an Agile kind of a software development life cycle. When we're doing so-called Scrum, when we're developing software in small sprints of 3 or 4 weeks, how does testing fit into that? How do we do it? Is testing even a role? No, it's not. Actually, there is no testing role in Agile. They do testing, but there isn't a role called a tester. So if you one day go into an Agile project and say, okay, here I come, I'm the tester. I say, we don't have testers here. Oh, what do I do then? Well, you're part of the team. We would expect you to bring some testing skills, but actually, we're all responsible for quality here. It's all a collective thing. So, you need to know how that fits. You need to know at fairly high level technical skills for programming. When I say high level, I mean broad. Doesn't mean you have to become a programmer, but it means you have to understand what developers are saying to you. Okay? That's important. And simply the ability to work together with developers and other stakeholders. So we've been telling you for so many years, separate your testing from development, have a separate team. And now we're saying, everybody back again, you know, out of your separate teams, into joint teams with the developers, and hey, we're all friends with the developers again, and all this. We need to understand what skills we need to work as in testing in that kind of environment. So